I'll begin tonight with To Autumn by my favorite poet of all time, John Keats. This poem was written in September of 1819 and published in 1820. To Autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who has not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. Or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy ladened head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watches the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while bared clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then, in a wailful choir, the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from the garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Wasn't that beautiful? I love that poem. I think that was such a great one to begin tonight with. I like to read it every fall. Next we have Percy Shelley's To a Skylark. I apologize for any errors in recording. I'm just doing this myself in my bedroom, but I hope I can convey the overall feeling of the poem. Anyways, this poem was written in 1820. Without further ado, I'll begin. To a Skylark. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire, blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, yet I hear thy shrill delight. Keen are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. All the earth and air, with thy voices loud, as when night is bare, from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. What thou art, we know not. What is most like thee, From rainbow clouds therefore not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. Like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour, with music sweet as love, which overflows her bower. Like a glowworm golden in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden in aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. Like a rose embowered in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflowered, till the sense it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy-winged thieves. Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awakened flowers, all that ever was, joyous and clear and fresh, thy music does surpass. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. Chorus hymeneal or triumphal chant, matched with thine would be all but an empty vaunt, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain? With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be, shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but never knew love's sad satiety. Waking or asleep, thou death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? We look before and after, and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. Yet, if we could scorn hatred, pride, and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know how thy joy we should ever come near. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. Teach me half thy gladness, that thy brain must know, such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world should listen then, as I am listening now. That was Percy Shelley's To a Skylark. Next, another Keats poem. Personal favorite. Well, they're all personal favorites. This one is quite famous. It's Bright Star. Written in the autumn of 1819. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendor hung aloft the night, and watching with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless eremite. The moving waters at their priest-like task of pure evolution round earth's human shores, grazing on the new soft fallen mass of snow upon the mountains and the moors. No, it's still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft fall and swell, awake forever in sweet unrest, still, still, to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or I'll swoon to death. Beautiful poem. It's a really good movie based on Keats's life called Bright Star that I would definitely recommend watching. Very good fall watch. Alright, next up, another Shelley poem. I promise we'll have more poets coming up. Now, Shelley's Lift Not the Painted Veil, written again in 1819. Lift not the painted veil which those who live call life, though unreal shapes be pictured there, and it but mimic all we would believe, with colours idly spread behind lurk fear and hope, twin destinies, whoever weave their shadows over the chasm, sightless and drear. I knew one who had lifted it. He sought, for his heart was tender, things to love, but found them not, alas, nor was there aught the world contains, the which he could approve. Though the unheeding many he did move, with splendor among shadows, bright wrought, upon this gloomy scene, a spirit that strove for truth, and like the preacher, found it not. Next, we have William Blake's Fair Elanor. In the book I'm reading this from, this comes from the section Gothic and Surreal, which I thought was fitting for October, what with Halloween. Written in 1783, this is Fair Elanor. The bell struck one and shook the silent tower. The graves gave up their dead. Fair Elanor walked by the castle gate and looked in. A hollow groan ran through the dreary vaults. She shrieked aloud and sunk upon the steps. On the cold stone her pale cheek. Sickly smells, death, issue from the sepulchre. And all is silent, the sighing vaults. Chill death withdraws his hand, and she revives. Amazed, she finds herself upon her feet, and, like a ghost, through the narrow passages, walking, feeling the cold walls with her hands. Fancy returns, and now she thinks of bones, and grinning skulls, and corruptible death, wrapped in his shroud, and now fancy she hears deep sighs, and sees pale, sickly ghosts gliding. At length no fancy, but reality distracts her. A rushing sound, and the feet of one that fled approaches. Ellen stood like a dumb statue, froze to stone with fear. The wretch approaches, crying, "The deed is done. Take this and send it by whom thou wilt send. It is my life. Send it to Elanor. He's dead, and howling after me for blood." "Take this," he cried, and thrust into her arms a wet napkin, wrapped about, and rushed past, howling. She received into her arms pale death, and followed on the wings of fear. They passed swift through the outer gate. The wretch, howling, leapt o'er the walls into the moat, stifling in mud. Fair Ellen passed the bridge, and heard a gloomy voice cry, "Is it done?" As the deer wounded, Ellen flew over the pathless plain, as the arrows that fly by night. Destruction flies and strikes in darkness. She fled from fear, till at her house arrived. Her maids await her. On her bed she falls, that bed of joy, where erst her lord had pressed. "Ah, woman's fear!" she cried. "Ah, cursed Duke! Ah, my dear lord! Ah, wretched Elanor! My lord was like a flower upon the brows of lusty May. Ah, life is frail as a flower of ghastly death. Withdraw thy cruel hand. Seekest thou that flower to deck thy horrid temples? My lord was like a star in the highest heaven, drawn down to earth by spells and wickedness. My lord was like the opening eyes of day, when western winds creep softly over the flowers. But he is darkened like the summer's noon, clouded, fallen like the stately tree cut down. The breath of heaven dwelt among his leaves. O Elanor, weak woman filled with woe! Thus having spoke, she raised up her head, and saw the bloody napkin by her side, which in her arms she brought, and now tenfold, more terrified, saw it unfold itself. Her eyes were fixed. The bloody cloth unfolds, disclosing her sight the murdered head of her dear lord, all ghastly pale, clotted with gory blood. It groaned, and thus it spake. O Elanor, behold thy husband's head, who, sleeping in the stones of yonder tower, was reft of life by the accursed Duke, a hired villain, turned my sleep to death. O Elanor, beware the cursed Duke. O give him not thy hand, now I am dead. He seeks thy love, who, coward in the night, hired a villain to bereave my life. She sat with dead cold limbs stiffened to stone. She took the gory head up in her arms. She kissed the pale lips. She had no tears to shed. She hugged it to her breast and groaned her last. Much more gothic poem than the last. I'm not quite sure if it's just the same tone as To Autumn, but I'm sure some people like the spooky tone. Right, next, keeping up with this spookiness, we have Mary Robinson's The Haunted Beach, written in 1800. Let me just turn to it. The Haunted Beach. Upon a lonely desert beach, where the white foam was scattered, a little shed upreared its head, though lofty banks were shattered. The seaweeds gathering near the door, a somber path displayed, and all around the deafening roar re-echoed on the chalky shore by the green billows made. Above a jutting cliff was seen, where seabirds hovered craven, and all around the crags were bound with weeds forever waving, and here and there the cavern wide its shadowy jaws displayed, and near the sand at ebb of tide a shivered mast was seen to ride, where the green billows strayed. And often while the mooring wind stole o'er the summer ocean, the moonlit scene was all serene, the waters scarce in motion. Thus while the smoothly slanting sand the tall cliff wrapped in shade, the fishermen beheld a band of spectres gliding hand in hand, where the green billows played. And pale their faces were as snow, and sullenly they wandered, and to the skies with hollow eyes they looked as though they pondered, and sometimes from their hammock shroud the dismal howlings made. And while the blast blew strong and loud, the clear moon marked the ghastly crowd, where the green billows played. And then above the haunted hut the curlew screamed hovered, and the low door with furious roar the froth breakers covered. For in the fisherman's lone shed a murdered man was laid, with 10 wide gashes in his head, and deep was made his sandy bed, where the green billows played. A shipwrecked mariner was he, doomed from his home to sever, who swore to be, through wind and sea, firm and undaunted ever, and when the waves resistless rolled, about his arm he made a packet rich of Spanish gold, and like a British sailor bold, plunged where the billows played. The spectre band, his messmates brave, sunk into the yawning ocean, while to the mast he lashed him fast, and braved the storm's commotion. The winter moon upon the sand a silvery carpet made, and marked the sailor reach land, and marked his murderer wash his hand, where the green billows played. And since that hour the fisherman has toiled and toiled in vain, for all the night the moony light gleams on the spectred main, and when the skies are veiled in gloom, the murderer's liquid way bounds o'er the deeply yawning tomb, and flashes fire the sands illume, where the green billows play. Full 30 years his task has been, day after day more weary, for heaven designed his guilty mind should dwell on prospects dreary. Bound by a strong and mystic chain, he has not power to stray, but destined misery to sustain, he wastes in solitude and pain a loathsome life away. That was The Haunted Beach. I'd like to conclude tonight with another Keats poem, La Belle Dame sans Merci. This is also in the Gothic and Surreal section of the book, but because it's Keats, I do find it quite beautiful. Right. This poem was written in April of 1819. La Belle Dame sans Merci. Oh, what can ail thee, knight-at-arms, alone and palely loitering? The sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. Oh, what can ail thee, knight-at-arms, so haggard and so woe-begone? The squirrel's granary is full, and the harvest done. I see a lily on thy brow, with anguish moist in fevered dew, and on thy cheek a fading rose, fast withered too. I met a lady in the meads, full beautiful, a fairy child. Her hair was long, her foot was light, and her eyes were wild. I made a garland for her head, and bracelets too, and fragments on. And fragrance on. She looked at me as she did love, and made sweet moan. I set her on my pacing steed, and nothing else saw all day long, for sidelong would she bend and sing a fairy song. She found me roots of relish sweet, and honey wild, and manna dew, and sure in language strange she said, I love thee true. She took me to her elfin grot, and there she wept, and sighed full sore, and there I shut her wild, wild eyes with kisses for. And there she lulled me asleep, and there I dreamed, ah woe betide, the latest dream I ever dreamed, on the cold hillside. I saw pale kings, and princes too, pale warriors, death pale were they all, cried, La Belle Dame sans Merci, thee hath in thrall. I saw their starved lips in the gloom, with horrid warning gaped wide, and I awoke and found me here on the cold hillside. And this is why I sojourn here, alone and palely loitering, though the sedge is withered from the lake, and no birds sing. Alright, that was the last poem for tonight. I hope all of you are asleep by now, dreaming peacefully. Can dream of romantic poetry. Autumn fields of England and the Keats saw. So, good night. I apologize again for any stuttering or mistakes I made in recording. I've read all the poems beforehand, but mistakes happen, So I hope you forgive me. Next week, I think I'll read some Edgar Allan Poe poems in honor of Halloween, spooky season. So I hope you'll all tune in for that. And thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful night.